In this documentary on the European Union, we will start by examining the origin of the EU, its growth in members, and an explanation of the institutions contained within. Later, we will look at the goals, opportunities, and threats to the European project.
Hello, I'm Robert Heneghan. Outside the grand halls of Brussels, Frankfurt, Luxembourg, and Strasbourg, there is often a lack of understanding of the workings and goals of the European Union. At the heart of the EU project is a desire for peace, stability, and security. Europe has a rich social, innovative, and economic history, and a union of long-established sovereign states would always prove to be difficult. Philosophical ideas of European integration predate World War I, but none of these became concrete political or economic projects. But after World War II, Europe split into the East, which is largely under the influence of the Soviet Union, and the largely democratic West, which comprises of both winners and losers of World War II. Western Europe sees European integration positively, because they want to curb extreme nationalism, which is seen as the root cause of the war, regain their post-war status, and as a mean of growing their broken economies. It is worth keeping in mind that the steps leading to European integration are happening in parallel with the start of the Cold War. In 1947, in order to keep a Western European recovery, the US launches an economic program called the Marshall Plan. The US fund has two main goals. It wants a strong European trading partner, and perhaps more importantly, it sees Western Europe as a natural ally against an emerging Soviet threat. Concrete European integration starts with the launch of the European Coal and Steel Community via the Paris Treaty signed in 1951. It was signed by Belgium, France, Italy, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, and West Germany. The relatively simple and practical idea being that coal and steel were essential for waging war, and pooling the regulation of these resources greatly reduced the risk of future wars among the treaty signatories. The treaty was a great success and solved decades of Franco-German rivalry. Next comes the Treaty of Rome, which comes into effect in 1958. This sees the creation of the European Economic Community, or EEC, and moves these countries on from simply coal and steel to bring countries together through trade links. The treaty results in a common market with common external tariffs, a common agricultural policy, and free movement of persons, goods, and capital. It also creates the following institutions: a European Parliamentary Assembly, a European Council, the European Commission, the European Courts of Justice, and the European Social and Economic Committee. 1973 sees the first of many enlargements with Denmark, Ireland, and the UK joining the EEC. 6 years after the admission of these three nations, the European Parliament held their first direct elections, and with a body of 410 members, elected the first female president of the Parliament. In 1981, Greece was the next nation to enter the community, followed by Spain and Portugal in 1986. This was also the year when the European flag was adopted by the EEC, which is still the symbol used by the Union today. 1 year later, the Single European Act came into effect, which was the largest revision of the treaties since the foundation of the EEC. It unified the community's foreign policy and finalised the single market, which today is still the largest component of the EU. Over the coming years, many of the states in the now dissolved Soviet Union applied successfully to become members using the criteria set out by a European Council meeting. Finally, in 1992, the Treaty on the European Union, commonly known as the Maastricht Treaty, was enacted. It formed the union that is still in place today. It united the European communities and was agreed to by then all 12 member states. This treaty remains the most important document to the Union and has been amended by the treaties of Amsterdam, Nice, and Lisbon.
Today, the EU has three bodies that make the majority of decisions. These are the European Parliament, the European Commission, and the European Council. I will provide brief summaries of the four other institutions which are instrumental in the functioning of the EU. To start with the Council, it comprises of either heads of state or heads of government of each of the 27 member states. According to the Lisbon Treaty, the Council's function is to provide the Union with the necessary impetus for its development. This means that the Council sets the Union's policy agenda and also acts as the collective head of state for the EU. The Council is presided over by its President, currently Charles Michel. The President acts as the EU's de facto head of state alongside the President of the Commission. The Council also appoints the President of the European Central Bank, or ECB, and proposes a candidate for the Commission's presidency. The Council must come to decisions unanimously -1. This both helps build consensus as well as enables the Council to take action against a member state. Second is the European Commission. The Commission is by far the largest institution, employing over 30,000 people. At the core of the Commission is the College of Commissioners. This comprises of 27 members, one from each member state. The College acts as the EU's cabinet, with each commissioner being given a brief and department. The President of the Commission is currently Ursula von der Leyen. The President is appointed by the Council from the existing College of Commissioners. Once appointed by the Council, the President must be confirmed by the Parliament before assuming office. Next, looking at the European Parliament. As the only institution comprising of members which are directly elected by the citizens, it has the final say on whether a law is to be passed or not. In total, there are 705 MEPs, making it the largest House of Parliament in the world, and has the world's second largest electorate. The Parliament's function is to pass bills and laws proposed by the Commission. It also has numerous committees whose purpose is to report issues that they want legislation for to the Commission and to influence its decision-making. The Parliament elects its own President and 14 Vice Presidents. The President of the Parliament, however, does not hold the same powers and privileges as the Presidents of the Council or Commission, and instead functions as the presiding officer when the Parliament is in session. Next is the Council of the EU. While it is often confused with the European Council, which is made up of the nations' heads of state, the Council of the EU is comprised of government ministers from nations in the Union. It also differs from the European Council in that it does not elect a president, but instead its presidency rotates every 6 months through the list of member states. Its primary function is as a debating chamber where members of national governments can voice concerns about proposed legislation. To pass through the Council, a bill requires 55% of the vote, but if a bill fails, then the proposed bill is sent back to the Commission for revisions. Most political success depends on the severity and the handling of crises faced. As the EU is not a federal or centralised entity like the US or China, the greatest challenges are often in the arena of foreign policy. EU decisions must be reached by near unanimity, which can result in delayed reaction. Some of the most recent EU challenges have been the Eurozone debt crisis, starting in 2010, the UK leaving the Union in 2016, the COVID pandemic, and to a lesser extent, tense US relations over the climate response and trade tariffs. But there are many other risks, including the rise of populism combined with democratic backsliding in some Eastern EU members. The EU has to grapple with a humanitarian crisis at its border, while some national governments must cope with a rise in support for far-right parties. EU public opinion is complex. Even though support for EU membership is very high across the Union, this does not mean that people are satisfied by the direction the EU is taking. Even as EU members have become interconnected over the past decades, their political and social fates have started to diverge. The Eurozone debt crisis, the refugee crisis, and the pandemic have widened these economic and political rifts. In summary, most would agree that the EU has been a success on many fronts. It has prevented wars within its borders and has greatly raised the standard of living for its citizens. For example, it has promoted high-value work, created higher food standards, and strong consumer rights. It has a strong record on human rights and promotes these values around the world. It takes eco-friendly policies seriously to the benefit of the whole world. Here in the United States, we rarely think about the European Union as a whole, but rather the 27 individual member states of which it comprises. However, as the world's largest single market, second largest economy, and largest union of sovereign states, its happenings are and will continue to be vitally important for the world's future. Thank you very much for watching.